Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. This is Spring Porter with Spring Solutions LLC. In this video, this is completely different. I am not talking about bankruptcy or unclaimed funds. I am talking about the 23andMe Ancestry test. I did take this test and here are the results. If you are thinking about doing it, maybe this is a little insight as to what you can expect, or if you're just interested in knowing what I am. If you are, please stay tuned. Hello everyone. In this video, this is something completely different than I've done on my channel, but this answers the question that I've heard my whole life. What are you? Where are you from? Where is your family from? What ethnicity are you? Well, I'm human. In this particular video, I'm going over my 23andMe results. I've always wanted to do this, or just kind of know what the background is or how the breakdown is in my family. This is, my sister sort of pushed me into this further. Shout out to my sister, Sequoia. But at any rate, we do share, she had already gone through this particular process as well as some of my other family members. So I feel like, hey, in an effort to fill in our family tree further, why not do this? Now, we do have different fathers. So I knew my mother's side for sure, you know, that would be largely African American or African descent. There's no surprise there. I do identify as Black. But the other side of, you know, my father, I assumed that we had more Native American blood through family members and stories that we heard. I think a lot of Americans, African Americans, would consider themselves to have some Native American blood, but you may not. And so this was sort of a mystery, and we sort of wanted to put this to bed, you know, in our family, so to speak. And so in an effort of doing that, this is basically why I decided to take the test. And then just traveling abroad. I've been a military brat for most of my childhood. We traveled around a lot. My stepfather, my sister, my mom are all dark-skinned, and I'm the only light-skinned. So I used to stick out like a sore thumb, even with, you know, Afro-textured hair. And don't let this hair fool you. I do have Afro-textured hair. Again, I do identify as Black, but again, I look different than my family. So that always made me feel a certain way. I sort of always wanted to overcompensate for maybe the lack of melanin in my skin, so to speak. And so at any rate, I noticed that people may treat you differently, obviously based on the color of your skin. Unfortunately, this is kind of the world we live in. And not only that, you can identify as one thing, but other people will, and other ethnicities will identify you as to be something else. I traveled and taught English in Korea. Depending on how I changed my hair, Koreans thought that maybe I was from the Philippines, or they thought that maybe I was Hispanic. Or if I wore my hair naturally, some people thought that I was from Ethiopia or some other Eastern African country, and I'm not. And so that just sort of, you know, makes you think about, oh, okay, what is it to this really? Is it really something else in my DNA that I'm missing? Or just curious, you want to fill in the holes to your family tree. I've always wondered, you know, what it would be like to see a family tree of mine. Because, you know, with people of African descent, we can only go but so far on our family tree. So doing this particular test was very easy. You get a kit in the mail. Essentially, you do deposit your saliva into a tube. You mail it off. There's a barcode. There's an app that you have to download. It was super simple. You mail it off at no additional fees, like the shipping fees and all that was included. Super easy, super simple to mail it off. And then within 2 weeks, here I have the results. So if you're interested in knowing who am I, or what am I rather, please stay tuned. So here is a picture of my father, and this is me when I was a kid. This picture is from the 80s, so it's really blurry. But as you can see, this is what he looks like when he was younger. He looks mixed. He got that he was half Asian most of his life. He has curly hair, but it's not as tightly curled as mine, so it's a little bit looser. And here is he's an older man at this point. So, and this is what he looks like. I do look similar to him in my skin tone, and actually my son does too. So this is what he looks like. So his whole life he went as multiracial, and sometimes he would just say he's Black because he didn't feel like explaining the breakdown of what he was. And people treated him as other. In certain parts of the neighborhood in New York, he used to say in the 50s that he would get beat up a lot because he was on the wrong side of the tracks or the wrong side of the neighborhood. You should go to the Hispanic side, you stay over there, or you should go to the black side because you're not white, but he got it from both sides, to be honest. And so here's my mother. Um, this is my mom. You look at her, you can see, she's of African descent. This is my stepfather. This is my sister. And so, as you can see, growing up, this is the family that I was with, traveling abroad, traveling around on military bases, domestically and internationally. I stuck out. People would ask me, and it's rude to ask people, "Is that your family?" Yes, it is. And so, again, obviously I am black. I identify as black. That's what I am. That's what I know. But again, traveling around, you people get to question and asking you, and you're thinking, well, maybe what am I? Because growing up, my father here always told us that I had Native American blood, and so here I just assumed that that is what it was. But after taking this test, and you will see that I'm really not as much Native American as I thought I was, or as I was led on to believe. And I think that's probably telling to a lot of African Americans in general probably think that they have, and they're probably wishing that they have more Native American ancestry. Um, I think because it's probably a common bond to may not want to identify as someone who could have been an oppressor in your family bloodline, and so you're probably wanting to to think or hope that maybe you're more African or you're more Native American. But as you can see in what I'm about to show you, that is not the case. And it's probably true also for maybe some people who are of European descent. If you look further back in your family tree, you for sure may find someone who is a kinfolk in Africa. I mean, that is not surprise. A lot of Americans, not just me, obviously, are of mixed descent. And so here is my breakdown, which was a little surprising to me. Uh, Sub-Saharan African is the majority, 64.9%. I am not surprised by that. Again, my mom is African American. She's black. Her ancestors came from primarily the western part of Africa, as most people who identify as black in this country, I'm sure, have a similar breakdown in their genetic makeup. So West African, 50.9%. Ghanaian, Liberian, Sierra Leonean, 21.3%, Nigerian, 19.4%, and then it just furthers down, it furthers the breakdown even more. Southern East African, Angolan, Congolese, African hunter-gatherer. It breaks it all the way down to the very small 0.3% of what that could be. And it also shows you, on the map, if you're a visual person, what that looks like on the map. So this is where the majority of my bloodline is from. I'm not surprised by that. But what I am surprised by is actually the percentage of European bloodline. I thought that these two would be the opposite. I thought that Native American would be somewhere around 31%, and I thought the European bloodline would be 2.9%. And again, based on family folk tales, and everybody has that grandmother who's Cherokee, right? But in our family, we're part of the Meherrin tribe. So I thought that my bloodline for Native American was actually much larger than it was, but to my surprise, that's not the case. So here I am, 31.4 European, Northwestern European, 29.6%. And then so that's this region up here. And then 14.6 British Irish. Now, my last name on my birth certificate, my father's last name, is that of like an Irish last name. So I'm not really surprised that that is the bloodline. Again, that was probably someone who was maybe a slave owner or a landowner, and my family was on the field and they were the owners. That's just the reality of our American culture as a whole. So that is the breakdown there, and then it's 14.2% French and German. And then it goes on to say broadly Northwestern European, 0.8%. So that's interesting. And then here's Jewish. 1.5% that is from this particular region of Europe. And then broadly European, 0.3%, where it's just kind of regionally all over the place. And then again, this is the part that's most surprising, is 2.9% East Asian and Native American. I really thought at least that would probably be 10% at the very least, but it's not. It's 2.9%. Native American is only 2.2%. And I really thought, based on, so don't always believe what your family tells you. It may not always be true, as I'm finding out. 0.5 Chinese and Southeast Asian. That is only 0.5%. Now, again, I told you that I taught English in Korea, but not only that, I actually lived in Sri Lanka in Southeast Asia, which is right under India, right here. It's an island country, and I lived there for a year. My son is half Sri Lankan, and I was actually, he was born there. So that was interesting too, to be in another Asian country and people still telling you, well, you really don't look, how is it that you're black and you're light? Because just in general, Sri Lankan people and South Indian people are very dark complexion, but they have really shiny and dark, beautiful hair. So I was much lighter than them, and they were confused. How are you identifying as black when you're not black? So it really, again, you can identify as what you want, but other people of other cultures will look at you and they will see something else. You'd be surprised at how many ethnicities you can see in Asia, for example. There's so many different type of Asian people, and you're right. Any one of our cousins or family members, light, white, or not, could fit into different types of Asian culture. So that was very opening, mind opening there. And then further down here, it just talks about broadly Central and South Asian ancestry. That's just 0.2%. So that's sort of this area that I was talking about. Sri Lanka here is this little dot right under India right here. And North Indian and Pakistani is 0.1%. So that part of Asia, which is here. So this is all very interesting. Another thing that you can do when you get this report is you can actually link it with other family members who have taken it. And it does also link you to, or you could possibly be linked to other family members that are like maybe third, fourth generation cousins, and maybe you share like a great, great, great grandmother or grandfather. So it could be someone in the hills of West Virginia, and they could be your distant relative. So this is really eye-opening, and it really tells me just how similar we really are as a people as opposed to different. Because I'm sure someone who identifies as European may get their results and they will probably have shocking results too, because we're not really all one thing. Um, just because you have a dominant trait in one thing, that doesn't mean that you are that thing. And that's what's interesting. Even though we tell other people, hey, well, you're a little bit black, so you are black. But that again is just programming that we really need to get out of, to be honest, because it's just outdated and it's old. But here is my ancestry timeline, which is also interesting. It talks about how many generations ago was your most recent ancestor for each population. So there's a second and third generation that is French and German, right? So that is interesting. So that's like a great grandparent, basically. Someone that came in, from that side of Europe that came over here. And then that's telling me, that the 1920s and 1890s, that's when they came into our family. And then there's a Nigerian part that's from 1860. Again, that we all know what was happening in American culture and, the world culture around the 1800s, right? We don't need a reminder. Well, maybe some people do. But I knew what was going on then. And so this is, again, where my bloodline is coming from. And that is actually a fourth generation person that was from Nigeria. And then it just goes further back. Native American, 1800s, 1770. And then British Irish, and it just goes further down. So this is a very unique, I'm just surprised by that, that's all. Some things are surprising about this. So I'm hoping that this gives you a little insight as to what I am, or if you're wanting to do this, what you can expect while taking this particular ancestry test. But again, this is really cool, I thought, and telling. And then I'm able to fill in my family tree even further than what we have so far. So that is cool. So I hope that this is helpful to you. Please check out the link again if you're interested in this DNA test. Check out the link if you're interested in taking my course for bankruptcy unclaimed funds. And I will see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.